Abby, Taco, Ricky, and Natalia, and in this presentation we fight for it to be legal. It's the introduction. Well, pretty much, marijuana is a good way of making some money on the side if you know what you're doing. But pretty much it's been causing a lot of issues with drug violence between Mexico and the United States especially. People think that this drug should be illegal because of this, but there are also various arguments which say that marijuana should be legal because the violence would decrease. So the major problem, like I just said, is that there are major amounts of violence taking place that has to do with drugs. That meaning connection with U.S. and Mexico. And people have been overusing the drug right now because they think it's a cool and hip thing to do, which is a major problem. And it's not a problem that it's overused, because people are allowed to smoke if they want to smoke, but the way it's distributed is a major problem. And Jennifer Aniston said a great quote, which was, "I enjoy smoking cannabis and see no harm in it." And that just shows that there are people who enjoy smoking who should be allowed to smoke if they want to.
Okay. First of all, how did the problem start? Well, it started because there were extreme amounts of drug sales throughout the world. People were starting to become farmers and grow a lot of marijuana because it helped them make a lot of money. It was easy to grow and it sold a lot. And there was a lot of marijuana, so that's how it started.
What caused the problem is that the need for money to have economic times. A significant amount of good music in the 1960s, which caused many people to become hooked to drugs like marijuana, alcohol, and a lot of that.
It was something very like normal for everybody to just use and buy and smoke. So yeah.
How widespread is the problem? Well, it's all over the world. United States, Mexico, and many blame on the North American consumption. But I think it's not just them; it's everyone around the world.
And when he says North American consumption, that means that people, and especially Mexico, think that U.S. citizens are overusing taco Laiseca.
Sorry.
Many people blame U.S. citizens for overusing the drug, and that's what's causing all the drug violence to take place, because it's in such high demands in the States that the tension between the United States and Mexico right now is very, very severe, because people in the United States want the weed from Mexico, and that's what's causing it to be in such high demand and bringing forth a lot of tension.
Yeah, it's in Mexico mainly where it's grown. And then why is it illegal? Many people think it's illegal because of medical issues or governmental issues, but most of it's because of racism, fear, protection of corporate profits, yellow journalism. Many of you, I don't know who knows or who doesn't know what yellow journalism is, but it's this it's like this journal that goes to one side of a certain problem. Like it defends only one side. It's not like a newspaper of the government, which has to talk about both sides. It talks only about one of the sides. So that's, and probably here they were talking about bad things about the marijuana. There is also ignorant, incompetent, and or corrupt legislators and personal career advancements and greed. Many people don't know, but like it has been illegal for less than 1% of the time that it has been used. Before, many people used it for food, woven fabric, incense, clothes, and rope. In wars, it was a very important material because people used it to do the ropes.
The period of the problem was during mostly the 1960s. Marijuana wasn't popular before that, but really became very popular in the 60s. Last 45 years, because of the marijuana drug violence, has been a major issue. As well, it's been used for the psychological problems of the people to help it. And is marijuana is the violence that is created by the marijuana is because people don't realize how bad the things that they're doing.
And it didn't just start in the 1960s. The 1960s was a popular time for it because late 1960s was Woodstock, where a lot of people would be smoking. And that's when it was in really high demand because people wanted a good feeling while they were listening to their favorite bands.
Yeah, as I said before, marijuana was popular before, but in a different way of using it for food, woven fabric, incense, clothes, and many other things. But it became popular, and smoking it became popular in the 1960s.
100% evils of the problem. Many deaths and fear in drug busts and gang violence, and innocent people at times get into trouble if they have any affiliation with the drug trafficking.
And that means that people get into trouble who aren't even affiliated with drugs whatsoever. It can be false attempts at a specific drug bust or wire, so innocent people get in trouble countless amounts of time.
And the outcome, these problems will continue to get more and more severe. And why will the drug lords stop? They're selling in such a successful business, there's no point at all.
So people are not going to stop selling it if they make so much money.
No. The conclusion is that if marijuana was legalized, problems and violence will decrease because as everyone could afford it, they don't want it so much, and people are not going to make so much money, so they will stop wanting.
And it won't be grown as much in Mexico and transported back and forth, because if it's legal, then people in the States will grow it and they won't be transporting it back and forth over the seas.
And yeah, the trafficking won't be as problematic as it is right now, with trying to sell it as how we said, from Mexico to the States, all around the world. How am I affected? I wake up every morning knowing that there will be many deaths as a result of drug violence, which gets me very upset. If it were illegal, none of these will take place. It will decrease the amount of young adult consumption, will not be cool or hip anymore. Wow, that's a photo of me when I was younger. My mom used to smoke marijuana. That's how it ended up.
How it affects the audience. If anyone in the audience purchases, they had a chance of getting shot by a drug one in a gang attack. They may have friends who can get into trouble as in death based on marijuana, which can bring forth divisions in one's community.
That just means that random people die from false drug attacks. So they've outlawed the #1 vegetable on the planet, and that quote just basically shows the amount of opinions that go into this argument. There are people who are for it, there are people who are against it, but the people who are for it, I don't really think that they look at the side of the whole drug violence. They're just for it because of the effects that it gives them, but the people who are against it really do have effect. I mean, they're just against it because one, it's not good for you at times, and two, I think they also look at the aspect of the drug violence that's been taking place. And the world would become a safer place if marijuana were to be legalized, but if it were to be legalized, that means that a lot of people would start using it over excessively, leading to it becoming a severe gateway drug, leading to people using other bad drugs.
Compromise. Marijuana should be legal. I am aware of the negative aspects and how it affects the society. And when Moderator talk about the legalizing this vegetable will decrease violence and the amount of money children steal from their parents to spend on marijuana. And it will decrease violence because maybe some kids like they fight with each other and they steal money from their parents to hide the marijuana and be like cool or popular. But if it were legalized, then people would stop using it like over excessively, and some of the problems that not legalizing the marijuana brings will go away.
What it means is that it's so popular because it's illegal. If it would be legal, it wouldn't be such a big deal. It would be easier for kids to buy it, or just they wouldn't be so like desperate to try it and do it.
It wouldn't be so like special.
Yeah, it wouldn't be so special.
So when they do it, it wouldn't be so bad. They wouldn't do it such a big amount at once. It would be more like a day, a bit, another day, another bit.
These drugs are not good for anyone, for you, for me, and for them. An example of a positive aspect of marijuana were to be legalized was such as me will stop trafficking marijuana and will grow it and not have to sell it for any such profit. We can continue their smoking and not have to worry about the terrible issue of drug violence.
Well, and basically, like the outcome that we're looking for is not this project, but if marijuana is to be legalized, we know that the outcomes will be that there will be less drug violence, but we know as a fact that if it is legalized, many people are going to use it, and there will also be a large majority of people who will stop using it because of the fact that it won't be as popular anymore. The problem with it being legalized is that if it's legalized, it will probably affect the economy in many ways because people will only start spending money on that because it's going to be so easy to get.
I mean, you have the example of marijuana being legalized in Amsterdam, and look at it. It has not been real damage about it. I mean, there has not been like murders or accidents because of the marijuana. Everything is going well. In fact, there is less problems with the marijuana being legal in Amsterdam than, for example, in any other country which is illegal.
Yeah, for them it's really normal to be smoking marijuana in the streets, and it's not like such a big thing. Like kids there are not desperate to go and buy some and try it out because they know they can.
They know how to control it. They learn from it.
So now we have our solutions for the discussion. And one solution that our group came up with is that it'll be somewhat like the strike or warning system that you might have at school with getting detentions or suspensions, stuff like that. If it turns into being a gateway drug, it will become illegal eventually, but people will have a record with when they purchase marijuana. It's not going to be able to just purchase it on the street or something, but it will show who's been buying marijuana and what the outcomes have been from people buying the marijuana. And if it gets too out of hand, it's going to have to become illegal again. It's sort of like giving the public and society an option on how they want to live their life. And if they live it like respectfully and they're mature about it, then the marijuana will stay legal. And as a result of that, the drug violence between Mexico and the United States will decrease because there will be no point for Mexico to have to go to Central United States anymore.
Or what it could happen as well is for the state to create like a shop that sells marijuana and just allowing people to buy a certain amount of marijuana so they don't excess the limit and they don't get too high.
Any questions?